You already notice more than you think. You just haven't learned to read the signs yet. Every person you meet is constantly dropping clues about who they are. And in this video, we're diving into what I call Nietzsche's 18 psychological truths, powerful insights that will help you finally see what most people hide. But I want to be upfront with you, this isn't one of those surface-level life hack videos. It's a full breakdown in 3 parts. Each part builds on the one before. Skip ahead and you'll miss what gives it all real depth. If you stick with me to the end, you won't just understand other people better. You'll start seeing yourself in ways you never expected. Words lie, but clues don't from childhood. We're taught to trust words. Words are how we connect, how we tell stories, how we explain ourselves. But Nietzsche warned language often hides more than it reveals. People don't always speak from truth. They speak from fear, from ego, from survival. The version of themselves they show to the world isn't always real, it's armor. The overly kind person? They might not be kind at all. They might be terrified of being disliked. The strong stoic person? Maybe they're barely holding it together. And most of the time, they don't even realize they're wearing a mask. That's what makes humans so complex. They're not trying to deceive you, they're hiding from themselves. Nietzsche once said, "Every profound spirit needs a mask." Not as an insult, but as a warning, don't confuse someone's mask for their soul. Truth, Verse 1. Everyone wears a mask to survive. People create versions of themselves they believe will be accepted so they can belong, be safe. Avoid rejection. But masks always have weak points. And those weak points show up as tension. Watch for the discomfort. The little flinch when you touch on a sensitive subject. The pause before they respond. The shift in body language. That's the first sign of what's really going on. Truth, Theyre In Too. What they hate in others reveals what they're hiding in themselves. Here's one of Nietzsche's sharpest tools: projection. When someone constantly mocks arrogance, chances are they're insecure about their own worth. When someone calls everyone else fake, they're likely hiding something they can't admit in themselves. We hate in others what we secretly fear in ourselves. So if you want to really understand someone, pay attention not just to what they admire, but what they judge, criticize, and mock. That's where the real story lives. Truth 3. Silence speaks louder than words. Nietzsche didn't believe in talking as the path to truth. He saw language as a defense mechanism, a way people avoid facing themselves. So when someone avoids a topic, pauses too long, or gives a rehearsed response to a deep question, don't brush it off. That silence is screaming. People avoid vulnerability because it exposes what they're afraid of. And when you notice what they're not saying, you learn far more than what they are. Truth, Theyre 4. Excessive virtue is often vanity in disguise. Be careful around people who always need to prove their goodness. The ones who constantly correct others, the ones always preaching morality. Nietzsche called this the will to power in disguise. Sometimes morality isn't about being good. It's about feeling superior. The louder someone shouts about how righteous they are, the more likely they're covering something up. Real goodness is quiet. It doesn't need applause. Truth, Theyre 5. People don't lie to you first. They lie to themselves. When someone says, "I'm fine, I'm over it," or "I don't care," don't always assume they're trying to deceive you. Often they've said those lines so many times that they've started believing them. Nietzsche understood self-deception as a defense, a way for people to function in a painful world. And the inconsistencies in someone's story, those are the cracks where truth leaks out. Truth, Theyre 6. Where someone feels superior. They're hiding inferiority. This one's pure Nietzsche. If someone constantly reminds you of how successful, smart, or important they are, there's a good chance they're overcompensating for something they're terrified to face. Real confidence doesn't have to prove itself. It's calm, grounded, quiet. So next time you see someone trying too hard to dominate or impress, look beyond the act. You might find a scared child behind the curtain. Understanding over judging. Here's the thing, learning to read people isn't about labeling them. It's about seeing them. Once you start noticing the signs, the constant interruptions, the nervous laughter, the way someone avoids eye contact while saying, "I'm fine," you stop hearing just their words. You start reading their truth. And that truth almost always has one root: fear. Use these insights not to manipulate others, but to be more compassionate. Because the more clearly you see someone, the harder it is to hate them. That's Nietzsche's secret. He didn't want you to analyze people so you could control them. He wanted you to stop being fooled and start connecting. If you've ever sensed a mask slipping, you know the moment I mean. When someone's voice cracks when they laugh just a little too long, when the conversation turns, suddenly they tense up. These moments are everything. They're not glitches, they're clues. If you've ever wished you could decode what someone was really saying under their smile, you're not alone. By the time we finish all 3 parts of this series, you'll see those moments differently. You'll see what others miss. And more importantly, you'll see yourself more clearly too. Part 2. Beneath the Persona. Cracks in the Mask. In Part 1, we peeled back the first layer of human behavior, how people build masks to protect themselves. Now we go deeper. Nietzsche believed the self isn't a fixed thing. It's a performance. A role stitched together by memories, fear, ego, and survival instincts. And when that performance is threatened, when a person's mask slips, truth starts to leak out. Let's explore the moments when someone's actions aren't just responses, but revelations. Truth, Theyre In 7. Most actions are driven by fear. Ask yourself this: why does someone over-explain? Why does someone dominate a conversation or disappear completely? Why does someone say yes when their eyes scream no? It's not always about desire. It's fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of failure. Nietzsche saw it clearly: our lives are shaped more by what we're running from than what we're running toward. So if you want to understand someone, don't just ask what they want. Ask what they're afraid of losing. That's where the truth lives. Truth, Verdi 8. Criticism is projection. This one is subtle but powerful. Next time someone constantly criticizes others, pause. Look closer. The man who mocks emotional people might be terrified of his own vulnerability. The woman who belittles others' looks might be fighting a war with her own reflection. Nietzsche taught us people don't criticize to expose others. They criticize to protect themselves. It's projection, an unconscious confession of pain. And if you trace the criticism back to the speaker, you'll often find the part of them they're most afraid to confront. Truth, Theyre 9. Guilt hides behind confidence. You've met this person before, the one who always seems in control, who never flinches, always composed, always right. But look closely. Notice the tension in their jaw, the way they over-prepare, the defensiveness when questioned. Nietzsche observed this in leaders, teachers, even preachers, people who performed certainty to protect something fragile inside. That something was often guilt. Maybe it was regret. Maybe it was a part of themselves they've never made peace with. Either way, they bury it under the performance of confidence. So next time someone seems too confident, don't get intimidated. Get curious. Truth, Theyre 10. Exaggeration exposes insecurity. This one's easy to miss, but impossible to unsee once you catch it. When someone says, "I really don't care what anyone thinks," it's almost always because they care deeply. When someone claims, "I'm always happy," they're probably not. Why? Because exaggeration is ego trying to drown out doubt. Nietzsche believed that extreme statements about happiness, independent strength aren't signs of truth. They're signs of imbalance. So if someone speaks in absolutes, don't take it at face value. Ask, what insecurity are they trying to silence? Truth, Theyre 11. The need for control comes from inner chaos. We all crave control over our jobs, our routines, our relationships. But when someone becomes obsessed with control, when they micromanage, panic over change, or dominate others, it's not strength you're seeing, it's fear. Nietzsche taught us the more chaotic someone's inner world is, the more they'll try to control the outer one. If someone has to plan every detail, if they lash out when things go off script, it's likely because they feel out of control inside. So instead of fearing the controlling person, see them for what they are, someone desperate to hold it all together. The stricter the shell, the more fragile the self. Truth. Theyre In Too. Performance is a mask for emptiness. This might be Nietzsche's most haunting insight and one of the most relevant in today's world. The louder the performance, the emptier the core. Think about social media, the endless highlight reels, the constant look at me, energy, the curated identities. Nietzsche wouldn't have called it confidence. He'd call it desperation. When someone is always performing, always showing off, always needing to be seen, it's often because they don't believe they're worthy without the show. Noise drama color, these aren't displays of power, they're whispers of need. Someone who's secure doesn't have to broadcast it. They just are. The patterns are speaking. Are you listening? You've probably started to feel it already, that shift. You walk into a room, and now the patterns speak louder than the conversations. You hear someone interrupting and recognize the fear of being overlooked. You see someone over-preparing and recognize the guilt they're trying to bury. You're not reading minds. You're reading the mask. And Nietzsche gave you the flashlight. But with that power comes responsibility. Because once you start to see people clearly beyond the performance, past the ego beneath the surface, you can't unsee it. You can't pretend you didn't notice. And that's the moment where this stops being about judgment and starts becoming about compassion. The real purpose of reading people. This skill isn't about manipulation. It's about grace. It's about seeing the child behind the critic, the fear behind the anger, the guilt behind the arrogance. When you understand that most people are fighting battles they never talk about, your heart softens. Your ego quiets. Your patience expands. And ironically, that's what makes you powerful, not control, but compassion. Nietzsche didn't teach these truths to help you win. He taught them so you could finally connect with others and with yourself. Part 3. The soul beneath the mask, the final layer. By now, something in you has shifted. You're no longer just hearing what people say, you're noticing what they're not saying. You're watching the mask crack in real time. The smile that lingers too long. The sudden silence when the topic hits too close. The shift in tone that signals something deeper underneath. In Part 3, we go beyond behavior and into biography. Because behind every belief is a wound, and behind every reaction is a memory. Nietzsche didn't just help us see the mask, he helped us understand where it came from. Let's finish what we started. Truth. 113. People don't speak from logic. They speak from pain. It's easy to think people are rational, that they argue based on facts or form opinions based on reason. But Nietzsche believed otherwise. When someone says love is a scam, they're not sharing an intellectual stance, they're protecting a scar. That's not logic. That's fear dressed as philosophy. People build their beliefs to protect their wounds. Then they justify those beliefs with logic to make them sound acceptable. But if you want to read someone, don't just ask what they believe. Ask what broke them. This one question will change how you see everyone, including yourself. Truth. 14. How they respond to weakness reveals their power. Want to know someone's true strength? Don't watch how they treat people above them. Watch how they treat people who can't fight back. Nietzsche believed real strength isn't in dominating others, it's in choosing not to. It's restraint, not force. If someone mocks vulnerability, chances are they're afraid of their own. If they punish small mistakes, maybe they grew up in a world where mistakes weren't allowed. If someone always wins but leaves others bleeding in the process, they're still at war inside. But the person who can hold space for someone's weakness without judgment, that's someone who has made peace with their own past. So next time you want to read, someone give them a moment where kindness is optional. What they do then That's who they really are. Truth, Theyre In 15. Attention-seeking often hides the fear of being forgotten. Ever meet someone who has to be the center of attention? Person who always posts, always performs, always needs to be noticed. At first glance, it looks like confidence. But Nietzsche saw through it. He knew that craving attention is often rooted in a deeper fear, the fear of disappearing. People who were ignored as children often grow up terrified of invisibility. So they overcompensate with noise drama outfits or intensity, not because they love the spotlight, but because they can't handle the silence. So before you judge someone who's too much, ask, what are they afraid will happen if they're not enough? Because sometimes attention isn't vanity, it's a cry. Truth, 16. The person they attack is often the person they envy. This one stings, but it's one of Nietzsche's boldest truths. People don't always attack because they hate. Sometimes they attack because they admire, but feel like they can never be that person. Envy is just desire that thinks it doesn't have permission. And instead of facing that pain, people turn admiration into destruction. It's easier to tear down what we feel we can't have than to admit we want it. The person who mocks someone's confidence might secretly wish they could be that free. The one who gossips about someone's success might be grieving their own missed chances. So next time someone attacks you, pause. Their hate might not be about you at all. Might be grief in disguise. Truth, Theyre In 17. People don't act from beliefs. They act from childhood. Nietzsche said it best, people don't change, they repeat. People think they're acting from values, logic, and experience. But in reality, most are just reenacting the roles they learned in childhood. The child who wasn't heard becomes the adult who interrupts. The child who was punished for showing emotion becomes cold and disconnected. The child who had to earn love becomes someone who performs endlessly for approval, even from toxic people. This is why behavior is more than a choice. It's a confession. So if you really want to understand someone, don't just ask who they are. Ask who did they have to become to survive. That's where their story begins. Truth, 18. Patterns are confessions. You just have to listen. Here it is, the final truth. And it might be the most important of all. People don't always know how to express what hurts. But they will show you again and again through their patterns. The person who ghosts when things get close, they're saying, intimacy scares me. The one who overworks constantly, they're saying, stillness is dangerous. The person who flirts with everyone but connects with no one, they're saying, I've been abandoned before. I won't let it happen again. Nietzsche believed that if you can listen, not just with your ears, but with your eyes, you'll hear what people are too afraid to say. And when you can do that, something shifts. You stop judging. You stop reacting. You start understanding. You stop becoming a mirror that reflects pain, and instead, you become a mirror that reflects grace. This was never just about other people. Let's be real. Every one of these truths wasn't just about someone else. They were about you too. Your masks, your fears, your patterns. The way you perform, withdraw, explain, or lash out, it all has roots. Childhood scripts, wounds you never asked for, habits that once kept you safe, but now you see them. And that changes everything. This journey wasn't about judging others. It was about waking up to yourself. Nietzsche didn't want you to read people so you could be clever. He wanted you to remember that everything you admire in others is a reflection of what you long to reclaim. That everything you judge in others is a part of you still aching for healing. So, what now? If something in this video hit you, don't keep it to yourself. Share which of these 18 truths felt most real for you. Let's build something honest in a world full of masks, because now you don't just see people, you read them. Not to fix them, not to expose them, but to know them. And in the process, know yourself. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new kind of awareness, of looking at the world and yourself without the filters, of finally becoming who you were before the mask. And if this spoke to you, you know what to do. Subscribe. There's more to come.